Bleh. You were approached to make a movie about your book
Three times.
three different times. And the last time the wheels were really finally spinning and it was going to be on Netflix or
Yeah,
something, right?
Netflix.
And as of right now, unfortunately, it's not. Things are
Status
frozen or
is, yeah,
it's
dubious.
sorry to hear that because I was looking forward to seeing it.
Yeah, it's a shame.
For sure, it's a shame.
It
Is
could have done a lot of good for a lot of people. I sent you some letters
You did, which is why I was bringing this up in the first place. What were your intentions for this project? What were your hopes that it could be?
to tell my brother's story, to tell the story of brothers' dynamics when one is doing well and the other one is not, and when the roles reverse, how it, that's strange. Also, the main thing was to tell the story of this guy who was told he was going to be a failure and never a vegetable, never going to be able to function in society on his own, who, overcame all of that to become, an inspiration to millions of people.
Right. And so
What?
that is ultimately what the intention of this movie would have
Right,
been.
right. And that's what those letters were that I
Right.
see from these people
Right.
that, I was diagnosed with and told the same things as Joey was. And after I read
Right.
your book, it gave me hope. If he could do it, I could do it. Encourage
Right.
him, made a big difference. Some of these people say it made all the difference in their life. I mean, like I'm Dr. Phil all of a sudden.
Here's what I can ultimately, all I have to go on besides speaking to you is that, like, I've looked at what you have done in the past. And what have you done in the past? You put out a book and you put out a posthumous release. I mean,
Two of them.
make it right, two of them. So it's like, it kind of makes sense that, or the idea of doing or having a movie adapted from the book, like, it doesn't seem unreasonable in that kind of way. From what I read from that other side, it seemed that and again, I understand this is very sticky and that we have to be very careful how we discuss this, that, at the end of the day, that it infringes on other people in the band's right of publicity in terms of the fact that they would have to be represented in some way. And how does that all work? But in hearing you talk about the tone, the idea, the concept, the notion of a story more about that really does focus on your relationship with your brother, as well as this notion of a person who was told that, he was kind of doomed and then proved them all wrong. I think there is room for that in it. I don't think that's competing with a Ramones biopic
No,
about all
it's
four.
not. It's its own story.
It could be its own. There's a way to sort of like focus in, zero in on that story if it's told in the right kind of
In
way.
2010,
Yeah.
I signed a deal with Fox Searchlight to do a movie on the book.
Hmm.
They got kind of far. They hired a writer,
Hmm.
Wesley Strick, who wrote the screenplay to Cape Fear, the one with Robert De Niro. And he wrote a screenplay, and I thought it was really, really good. And it was not a Ramones movie. It was very true to what I
Right.
wrote in my book.
Right.
Unfortunately, Fox Searchlight only uses a small stable of directors, like the guy who did The Wrestler, and they were all busy. And the 2-year term ran out. They couldn't find the director,
Hmm.
and so it reverted back to me.
What is interesting, if you do look at the book, I Slept with Joey Ramone. I mean, yes, there's a section in there that's dedicated to the Ramones, but the Ramones really do not come in until about, I don't want to say it's halfway, but like there's
About
a
a
good,
third.
yeah, I mean, it really is. And then it's life after the Ramones. So it's really, of course, the Ramones are a part of the story. How could they not be? But it's not, it
Peripheral.
really,
They were a peripheral part of it.
yeah, it's not a Ramones biopic in the way that I think that maybe it's being made out to be, in that kind of way. And honestly, I'm not going to lie, like, you definitely have a tightrope to walk. You have to be careful. If and when you're somehow able to get this up and running, like, it's a tightrope, because at the end of the day, if the core of the story loses focus in any way, shape, or form, then a finger gets pointed at you as, oh, no, this is a Ramones biopic. It really has
Well,
to
it's getting
resemble.
pointed at me anyway,
Right. That's exactly why.
even
Exactly
though it's
right.
not, and I never intended it to be, and neither did Netflix, supposedly. They never intended it to be a Ramones biopic.
This is what you wrote. You said, the story I wrote is about a guy I grew up with who from birth suffered from many maladies and was told by doctors that he'd never be able to function on his own, yet went on to become a huge success and inspiration to millions of people. Yes, he did it via being in a rock band, but it wasn't about the band. It could have been about a guy who was told these same things, yet went on to become a top pilot in the Air Force. Would the story be about the person or the Air Force? You know, it's about the underdog who beat the odds and overachieved beyond all expectations. It's not about the Ramones. The story that Mickey wrote inspired thousands of people in similar situations to believe that they could do the same. And they continue to contact you and they appreciate you for telling the story. It's also about family dynamics and how things like this affect people's whole family, especially their brothers and sisters, and how even when they have problems or occasionally fight with each other, as we already discussed as well, you know, the sort of relationships and dynamics between brothers and sisters. And that if you want to be honest about it with enough love and support, they can overcome the biggest obstacles. You know, that ultimately this really does not have anything to do with Linda Ramone or Chris Ward, aka CJ Ramone, or Mark Bell, aka Marky Ramone. In our exploration tonight, like, we have really proved that. Like, we've really sort of gotten to like the core of what this movie could be. And I'll be honest with you, when I was making that video, you know, and trying to figure things out, I wasn't exactly sure. I was like, well, you know, maybe she does. I was sort of seeing her side in terms of like, well, you know, everybody does have a right to publicity. And I don't think you would disagree with that statement. Everybody does have a right to publicity. But the reality is that the focus here is not being, it's the wrong focus. The focus is the core of the story of brothers and the story of like the Amadeus like aspects of the story. That's what really differentiates this, as well as even if you wanted to tell the story of the Ramones in 2 hours, you wouldn't be able to do a very good job of it because there's just too much shit there. You just couldn't do it.
Of any band. I mean, you
Any
know,
band.
even with this, the book is 400 pages. I told you this is the third time I was approached by somebody to make a movie out of it. And I know they're going to have to create dream sequences or whatever. You have
Sure.
to.
Streamline. It has to be streamlined.
Right.
You have to, there's going to definitely probably be I'm just curious. I don't know if you could say this. Do you remember what the page count was on any of those scripts? Was it over 100 pages?
On the screenplay,
Yeah.
I only saw the one from the Fox Searchlight,
Yeah.
the one that Wesley Strick wrote.
Was that over
The,
100?
the rule is one page on a screenplay is equal
1 minute.
to a minute, right?
I will say though, as a filmmaker myself, I have written screenplays, shit you not, that were 70 pages and they were 120 minutes long. Like
Right.
sometimes, yes, like it's totally the rule of thumb to average. I'm trying to think of what's a good musical scenario for that? I can't think of one. There's got to be something.